So in addition, finger movement will only be available on the new Genesis physique. So they've added the ability to have fingers and thumbs up and different emotes like that. Face variants, hairstyles from PSO2 will be usable in New Genesis, although naturally those that come from New Genesis will be higher quality. And then from New Genesis, you'll be able to use any. You can only be used. Sorry, those from New Genesis can only be used on the New Genesis physique. This does not apply to pupils, eyebrows, makeup patterns, and some from New Genesis. And these are not going to be usable in the PSO2 face variants. The pupils, eyebrows, eyelashes, makeup patterns, and PSO2 cannot be used on NGS's face variants. What that really to kind of help, like if you're kind of like, I don't understand that phrase, go download the benchmark and play around with the characters, and you'll see what they mean by the different variants and physiques. Because you can literally filter, just show me the new Genesis stuff, or just show me the base PSO2 stuff. And there is there is a massive graphic quality update.
There is.
Even though PSO2 is getting upgraded. What's up?
I'll just say there is.
Yeah.
There is a massive difference between the two.
I'm excited to see what your weird cowboy mash hat thing looks like.
I think I'm rolling a new character. I think I'm rolling a new character because it's like some of the models look so good. I was like, I've been playing around with just like a female Newman. I'm like, man, she looks great. Like,
do you lose all your cosmetics when you do that?
I don't know. Like, I don't know if they're gonna let me like change my base character, and if they if they don't, then I'm just gonna play a new character. I'm not gonna worry about it.
Like some sort of Fantasia potion.
I mean, you probably end up having all of your cosmetics and stuff like that. That would be account wide.
Yeah,
as you would say. So you should be okay as long as you're logging in with the same account as you use for base PSO2.
Yeah, and that's the same account. So they've already, because like when we play in the beta, you're already on my friends list because we're friends on Xbox. So all that was already handled, even in the beta. So that was actually really good to see.
It was just hard to team up for a little bit there.
You cannot mix layered wear and or cast parts from both games, and all accessories in PSO2 will be usable in New Genesis. New accessories in New Genesis can be used in PSO2, but you're going to have greater customization as a part of New Genesis. So what about the features that you've actually spent real money on, AC and Star Gems, on things like crafting lines and extra collection file slots? Premium set is actually shared between games. So if you're subbed, there's one sub for New Gen, like for PSO2. This also includes material storage, extended storage, character storage, sub-palette expansion, and your personal shop. It is specifically mentioned, however, that because the different game systems, New Genesis's inventory expansion skill tree edition listed twice, expanded max orders limit, and personal quarters use will not take effect in New Genesis. They will continue to work in base PSO2. Basically tells me it's a new game. If you want, I guess, additional inventory space, you're going to have to spend some money. And I'm sure that they might have some kind of bundle. That's how I read that. Does anybody read that differently?
No, I read that about the same.
Okay.
Yeah, that might be something that's included in Game Pass.
Mm-hmm. Right, and that's one of the things that I'm really curious to see if Xbox has any announcements at E3 this year with PSO2. Chris?
I don't know the reasoning behind this for this particular game, but having played a lot of MMOs over the year, when people ask for inventory as games get bigger, whether that be Guild Wars, Final Fantasy, it doesn't matter. Every game, inventory becomes an issue. Inventory is one of those things that continually, like, programmers set it out in a very static fashion when they build a game because they're like, this is plenty. And it is not uncommon for them to have baked it in. World of Warcraft had a 16 slot base backpack for a long time, which wasn't a big deal when you could only really get to like 14 slot bags. But as you got to where you had 20, 24, 32 slot bags and all your other slots, your base backpack felt like it was kind of holding your back. Why can't I just toss that in the trash and replace it with an upgraded bag that I'm happy to pay for or craft? And they said that the problem is that they numbered those inventory slots 1 through 16. And then they used slot 17 for like other stuff and slot 18 for other stuff. So the systems weren't really meant to grow. Final Fantasy runs into the same issue. They build this stuff here and then they build something right next to it. And so it doesn't expand over. So it is not shocking to me to see that inventory expansion is something that they're like, hey, we want to do it differently. So we're just going to like wipe your upgrades from before. You can keep them when you're in old content, but when you're in the new stuff, like we really need inventory to function differently. That doesn't surprise me. I imagine those of you that have spent money on inventory expansion for the base game are not going to feel real good about it. But I'm just telling you from having listened to a lot of developers talk about inventory specifically, it doesn't surprise me as a new player coming in to hear that they couldn't get that to function.
One of the things Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead, Chili.
I was going to say, shame they can't do something like ESO2 does, where you get unlimited space for crafting. Because if you sub to ESO2, you actually get a crafting bag, which actually has unlimited space.
Guild Wars 2 has a material storage that you push everything to. It can store every material that you can find in the game. Base, it's at 250 of that, and then you expand it. Maybe they, do we know that they didn't move to that? Because if they moved to that,
they did. I think that is, and I could be misremembering, so don't quote me on that if you're watching this, and we'll see if we get into that more here. But I remember hearing something about that. They also increased the base inventory. Base PSO 2 had a 50 slot at a minimum that starts at 100 slot, which feel like that immediately feels like they're not coming for you money. Because like at a minimum, I was like, if you're gonna do anything to enjoy your PSO2 experience, at least get 100 slots. Because just like with Guild Wars, they shower you with loot. It's a loot game. You want loot, and then all of a sudden you're like, and now I'm spending an hour doing inventory management and whatnot. And it's like, okay, get 100, and you're not gonna be leaving things on the battlefield, and just make sure you're going into each fight with 50 slots available. We'll see if they cover more of that crafting stuff, and if chat ends up knowing, you can always weigh in on that just to make sure that I'm not giving false information. What races will be in PSO2 New Genesis? Numens, humans, castes, Dumans. However, during character creation, you can actually select body type, which are human type 1, male and female, caste type male and female, but you can take parts from the different races and things like that. So like they really have the most impressive character design and build out that you have I think a lot of choice when it comes to your races. You have your pre-built designs, and then you can kind of go nuts, and you want to take apart from the Numans or the Dumans or the Humans and Boobumans, you're good to go on that regards. So these fields are huge. How does traveling in them work? Well, transitioning to new areas is as simple as walking into it, and there's no longer loading screens upon moving to new areas, even when going from the lobby to the field. The Ruker devices, I don't know if that's pronounced correctly, exist, I call them the giant green penises, exist throughout the field and act as your fast travel, and if you have your Photon Dash and your Photon Glide to navigate the fields faster as well. So just like our Aetheryte crystals in 14, Chris, these are just these big old towers that you can go to, and then once you kind of go to them, you unlock them, and then allows you to kind of jump around the map for free.
Are they expensive?
No, it's free. You just teleport
it's all
wherever
free.
you want. Yeah, I think it's a missed opportunity, like to charge new Meseta. Go ahead.
How are they removing money from the game? Like, what does money serve as a function if there's no cost to my character doesn't need housing that it has to pay for every month. I don't have a utility bill, and I don't pay for travel. Like, are repairs expensive?
There isn't a repair system, but there is an upgrade system.
The upgrade system will take your Meseta really quick.
All right.
Let the inflation begin.
Let the inflation begin. So how do enemy spawns work in these massive fields? Explaining this requires the explanation of the sections and the adventure areas, as they're called. So exploration sections of the map are going to have you have more gather materials and ingredients from both the fauna, different just passive enemies out there, monster or cows or like things to farm, and various what they call tame monsters. These monsters appear to spawn randomly in the section, and killing them will give you materials. Aggressive enemies can actually also spawn in these areas, but they're just big. And yeah, that's kind of how they're focused. Now, battle sections are going to have you fight enemies, which consist of dolls and altars, and combat evolves around running towards the target marked within either E for enemy spawn or T trial. And when the emergency trial is taking place, these markers work similarly to how they worked in the Tokyo, Las Vegas area in PSO2, where enemies spawn near the markers. So when you're running around the map, if there's an event, whether it's just a kind of a fate of a bunch of enemies with an E, or a bigger boss kind of enemy with a T, that's going to kind of how that functions, and you'll see that pop up, and the goal is just to navigate people to them. Now, exploration sections can consist of like 32 people, like in that specific instance of it, and the game just kind of handles the self-instancing of these exploration zones. And then the battle sections are going to have where you have 8 people. So like you're not going to run into a group of E and you're going to see 100 people. You'll see no more than 8 people as a part of that specific chapter. Go ahead.
It sounds a bit like Boja zones in Fantasy XIV, basically. Boja/Sandor. Where there's a limited amount of people, and then you have 8 people that go to do the trial.
Because you've got 32 in the large zone, and only 8 are allowed inside the critical engagement.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of the same.
32 is not that many.
No, it's not.
That's really intimate.
But it's also weird where if you're in a party with somebody and they instance in with you into that zone, it can actually go over that 32. So you can have like 35 people if you're in a party of 4 people and you just go into
Was it like
the zone
Guild
with
Wars
instances.
1 or like Diablo games where like I'm kind of out in the world in these relatively intimate zones and then the interaction with the rest of the community happens when I'm in hubs?
So PSO2 as a base is very hub and content. This handles all of that behind the scenes. So it's both massive and yet intimate in that regards. So when you transition, the game is just going to automatically kind of balance itself out so that you can have an experience that's designed for that. Because if all of a sudden you're not going to see 100 people in the same area, but then they have bigger bosses that will spawn in the exploration sections that bring in more people and make that event kind of this really big critical engagement style piece of content. And then you can go back into the lobby, but all this happens without loading screens, so the game just kind of handles it, so you never really even notice it happening. You just kind of feel like you're having this intimate experiences. You're playing with other people, whether they're in your party or not in your party, and then you can go back into the lobby and you can interact with like pretty much anyone.
Once I'm in an exploration zone, am I getting jumped into other exploration zones to continue to load balance the server, like WoW's shard system?
I don't know, actually.
Or am I getting opted over, like Guild Wars system, where they're asking me to jump over? Or do I have to go back to the hub and go back out, like Final Fantasy?
You don't have to return. You don't have to return. Like, literally, my experience is the game's just managing it. So instead of maybe even being
There's going to be pros and cons to that, depending on how they're doing it.
Right. So
I want to see if the community can, like, you said that, what's the biggest, is 4 people the biggest group?
Yeah, party size is 4 people.
Yeah, party size is 4.
But you can alliance.
Imagine what if the community tries to like jump in with like 32 groups of 4.
Mm-hmm.
So in World of Warcraft, there was some changes to the way loot mechanics worked, and it resulted in people abusing it in what they call these 4x2 farms, and it basically like quintuples or more the amount of loot you get per hour, and it just breaks the game. It's like, oh, you're playing the game and you get 2,000 cloth per hour or whatever, but we could do this as a group and all 8 of us get 50,000 each per hour. Like let's just shoot this to the moon here. So if that is possible, that will result in loot mechanics that were not intended, because you would end up with 128 people in the zone. And that's just going to break things. That's going to trigger all sorts of weird spawning and whatever the server answers that with.
It also sounds like what caused the mass bannings in Fantasy XI back in the day. Someone found out, I can't remember what fight it was now. I think it was one of the end game areas, but you're only supposed to get 1 drop per alliance. But they found out if you disbanded the party just before the boss, it then forced the drop to be in every party. And
everybody's their own party, so everybody gets loot.
So everyone got banned because of this eventually, but they didn't fix it for like 6 months. So people weren't knowing it was an exploit. There was this mass ban wave where people are like, what did I do?
I got kicked from party.
And then I got banned. Welcome to 14.
Then I got banned.
Oh man, that's horrible. Thank you so much for checking out this highlight from Epic Loot Radio. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe button, and more. And check out our other channels, Ginger Gaming Radio, Ginger Prime, and Work to Game for more content. Thanks for being here, and you're awesome.